From Dada to punk rock and beyond, how art unmade the world. Episode 1, The Fountain of Negation, Marcel Duchamp. So we're talking back in 1917, height of World War I. Marcel Duchamp is a Dada artist, famous for his cubism before that, but he kind of dumped that one, jumped on the old Dada bandwagon, such as it was, and proceeded to present a urinal, a man's urinal, that he had either found in a junk shop or bought in a store, signed it R. Mutt, which may have something to do with smut, but do not really know, and signed it R. Mutt 1917, presented it to some swanky Paris exhibition or whatever it was, and therefore made art history. I'm going to interject with myself here. I got that wrong. Duchamp moved to America in 1915, and the exhibition with the urinal was in New York. But what had happened was that before that, when Duchamp was in France, he had submitted his very famous iconic painting, Nude Descending a Staircase, which is kind of in the Cubist style, and a really beautiful painting actually. One of his best works, if not the best, I reckon. And he was kind of leaned on to withdraw it from the Salon in Paris. And I think what he was doing in America was testing them. These people he had been involved with, this society, was testing them to see if he could get another controversial work into an exhibition, but it was refused. So that's my interjection, and on with the story. This artwork of his is often cited as being one of the most, if not the most, influential artwork of the 20th century. So what's it all about? Okay, so the Dadaists came about, I think they started as something like 1912, before World War I, in the build-up to World War I, but they really got going during World War I. And I guess it was a good statement, wasn't it? The world, especially Europe, was tearing itself literally to pieces. People were losing their loved ones left, right and centre for what must have seemed like a nonsense to a lot of people. So it's not that unsurprising that an art group forms that really want to say it's enough of art, we want to destroy art. Why should there be beauty and aesthetics, if I can say aesthetic? I'll say it with an F. No, I can't say it with an F. Athletics. Why should there be aesthetics? Why should there be beauty when the world's tearing itself apart? Maybe it's all nonsense. Maybe it's all rubbish. Maybe it should be ridiculed. So they went out and they ridiculed art. And as I said, it's not unsurprising that a group started like that, and it had quite a lot of purpose in its message. So Marcel Duchamp is one of these guys, and he presents this urinal, which he also turns up the wrong way. But apparently this famous artwork got lost at some period. No one knows where it is. Marcel Duchamp did a few other works, which we're not going to really discuss, and I'm not going to discuss the whole Dada movement here. I will in other places discuss different parts of the Dada movement and different artists that were into different kinds of media work. But here we're just talking about the fountain, because this one is the beginning of conceptual art. Conceptual art has become a really, really big thing. But Marcel Duchamp called himself an anti-artist, and this is really important to what's to come later. Now, Marcel Duchamp was also a chess grandmaster, And after a while being involved with the Dadaists, he kind of gave art up. Like a true anti-artist, he gave art up, he negated himself, he negated his artistic genius in a way, because in a way he was a genius. And he became a chess grandmaster, and he spent something like 40 years doing that. And then sometime in the 60s he was invited over to America because his art had become quite famous by then, and so had most of the Dada artists had become very famous. Lots of people wanted to see the work, and there was an exhibition going on in America. I can't remember, Guggenheim maybe, I don't know where it was. And he was invited to come over and exhibit his urinal, but he didn't have his urinal. So he went over there, and what he did, he went out and he bought a load of urinals, signed them all arm up 1917, exhibited one of them, I think, maybe some of them, who knows, and started selling them as the original one. I guess a joke was on the art world, right? First of all, he's an anti-artist, and he gives them this, he basically is saying it's all piss. And then he comes back years later and sells his piss over and over again and makes a whole load of money and becomes very, very famous man. But in so doing, he kind of contradicted himself. Yeah, he did take the piss in the first place, and he did take the piss in the second place, and he did get a lot of money out of it. But what had started as anti-art had become very much part of the establishment and the mainstream, very much part of bankers and rich people buying art as a form of investment in the same way that they would buy gold. We still live in the shadow of that urinal today, because conceptual art is still a really big thing. And I want to say something about it. Its anti-art credentials have completely gone now. So in a certain sense it doesn't have that much reason to exist, although some of the work is fascinating and very interesting. But it's also not skillful in the sense that art used to be known for being. There's no real skill, it's all about the thinking, and it's a lot about puns, one-off jokes, which I think over the last 100 years has got a little bit tired. There's also a thing where in the past gentlemen didn't really engage themselves in dirty work with their hands, and painting was always a difficult thing because it was regarded as something that workmen did, that artisans did. For example, it's not known who painted anything in the Roman period. They didn't really sign it. It was mostly done by slaves and workmen. So it took a long time for painting to become something that is regarded as being, shall we say, from the more cultured, the more educated classes to appreciate. So conceptual art goes back to that time because the artists involved in it do not get their hands dirty by and large. They dream up an idea and they get their minions, their workers, their labourers to make it for them. And in a sense, doesn't that really reinforce the class structure that anti-art was supposed to be a part of breaking down? So in this episode we discuss the fountain, the urinal, made famous by Duchamp, and how that led to conceptual art. But we're going to take this further. We're going to see that Dada influenced not only the art world but life as it exists today in quite a profound way. And we're going to trace its development because after Dada finished, it left a legacy, and that legacy continued through many other movements and other phenomena, and is part of what we're living in today. In many respects, we're living in a kind of ready-made Dada-inspired world, and I'm going to go into that in other episodes. So this is episode 1. It's quite a simple one. It's quite straightforward. I'm not getting into big theories about it. It's all very, very clear. And this is episode 1, How Dada Unmade the World, the Fountain of Negation, part of From Dada to Punk Rock and Beyond, How Art Unmade the World. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. I'll see you about.